Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series Accidentally Adopted. This is the finale of this series, and there will also be an epilogue tomorrow. If you're new to this series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Accidentally Adopted Finale. 2 weeks after the Battle of Farsight Station. All across human space, the media and social media had been practically frothing at the mouth at the news, or rather, the lack thereof. Scant images of new Xenos were causing all manner of speculation and arguments, both the intelligent and moronic variety. From what their classification would be, to what their political system might look like, to whether the water sausage people or the giant teddy bear people were cuter. Likewise, the patch of the Orion arm slightly more coreward from human space, known by its inhabitants as the explored region, and by humans as over there. The news that contact with sneakies had been made was causing a stir. There may or may not have been a small riot or two when local governments failed to furnish demanding constituents with data on the location of the sneaky nation they simply didn't have. It was only some minor property damage, and nobody except one aged and unhealthy security officer died, and that of a heart attack from the fright of being shouted at. Therefore, they couldn't really be called riots except for the most pedantic of people. On the popular independent broadcast, the Tuesday presenter tried to be nonchalant about getting his notes in order as he started the next segment of his morning podcast. His ears twitched and his whiskers quivered nervously, but he could keep everything in frame professional looking. He was having trouble keeping his tail lashing, though. Now on to the next story. The remarkable disappearance and subsequent reappearance of Gregory George, better known as the Report. Records show that he was on mandatory mental health leave on sanctuary in from the 5th of July of year 1760 until he was reported missing in action on the 22nd of August in the same year, when he failed to check in from the planned wilderness overnight stay. A search of the area where he'd submitted a plan to hike was conducted and turned up a destroyed tent and sleeping bag, and nothing else. A comparison of timing of the disappearance with observation station data revealed that it coincided with two events: the infiltration by a digitant named Entropy Razor, beat smelling, and the intrusion of a small ship originally mistaken for a rogue asteroid. Entropy Razor managed to cause significant damage to the communication systems, allegedly looking for secret subroutines, allegedly under nobody's direction and for nobody's benefit. The guest for the day, a chimp Mando, bared his fangs and interjected, "Definitely not a CRP agent or anything." Of course not. It's not like a certain sippy cuff politician has been accusing Sanctuary and Respite of being secret super spy research and training facilities. The thing I find to be absolutely boggling is the asteroid ship turned out to be Xenos. Well, at least the idiots didn't start a war with us by kidnapping one of our most famous heroes. The Xenos. These googlies, no, the sippy cups. I see. It turns out that googly ship got supremely lucky. In the short term, well, 3 years later makes a difference. What we know is that PFC Gregory George was taken by these googlies as part of a criminal poaching and pit fighting ring, and that their government in no way condoned it. I find it difficult, to say the least, to believe that a being could get away with running an operation for that long in a civilized nation without some level of state corruption. But more details to come after the diplomats start talking, I suppose. After a period of about 2 3/4 years, the main pit fighting ring was apparently busted up, and somehow PFC Gregory George wound up in the custody of a Bleavis man called Yondril, the captain of a merchant ship called Among the Star Tides We Sing. We haven't seen very much in the Blue People, but the ship names we've gotten are just lovely. Yes, I do quite like the phrases they use. It gives their ships a sense of aim, I think. And the aim of the ship was clearly to be a place of beauty, which it may well have been for George, seeing that he apparently got officially adopted into the family. You know, it's nice to see the Lost Boys making connections of this nature. From a psychological perspective, it seems like a trauma bonding, but in this case, he managed to find some good people to latch onto. It's not like the last time he bonded with the baddies. No, but they did encourage each other to live a very risky lifestyle. It was all very understandable. and better than what they very well could have happened. But you can't call what the Lost Boys were doing good for them. Did you ever meet him or any of the other Lost Boys during your service? No, but my unit was in the same operation as Gunner Juan. He took out an enemy tank just as it was firing at us from his artillery battery 30 miles out. I don't know if I can handle that kind of stress. It's amazing what you can get used to. Anyway, apparently Gregory learned a Xeno's language and told them his story. Then they decided to hunt down the criminal scum with a complement of Bleevu's SWAT, and coincidentally caught up to him at the same time the Here's Johnny was closing in on a station past the last hive the Navy glassed. From what the Navy can tell, apparently the Xenos were quarantining the grubs until they scanned our expeditionary fleet and ran screaming. Well, we're fixing their mistakes, indeed. That brings us to today, when apparently the Wendy has gone MIA. Now, I never served, but I do have brothers, and if one of them was missing for 3 years, you wouldn't let the reg stop you from going to hug him? Exactly. Yeah, I expect there's something to that assessment. I wouldn't be surprised if we did a record search that we'd find that every surviving Lost Boy is currently AWOL. And I'll be less surprised in a few days when the Wendy turns up requesting to dock with the Speaking Softly. Meanwhile, aboard an unassuming personal yacht, Amelia Doucette waited patiently for permission to dock in the supercarrier dominating the binary star system, devoid of anything else even mildly interesting. Important things were going to happen very shortly, and worse interesting things as well. She just knew it in her gut. She got her clearance and her directions and began piloting her yacht into the opening hangar bay. She hadn't been worried about being rejected. They knew that she was coming, and she had a perfect right to attend the first diplomatic meeting between her government and the allegedly friendly Xenos. Then her compad pinged, and she saw that she had a reply from Gregory George. Yes, was all it said, and she considered herself that she was likely to get a better quote from him than the last one. It wasn't when she was inexperienced at reporting and just after his home had burned, after all. Meanwhile, aboard the same supercarrier, the Speaking Softly, the Admiral wiped away the first contact materials and pursed her lips in thought. Warrant Officer Sadie's AA report was probably going to get the Dirt Pounder another solo laurel, or another cross of terror at the very least. His captivity in the pit fighting ring would rate him the broken chain and the red drop as a matter of course. Poor boy doesn't want another fecking medal, he wants his brothers, she thought ruefully to herself. But then a smile curled up her lips as another thought came to her mind. Well, I might as well make that promotion permanent. Lieutenant Gregory George. She quickly approved some requests, sent her approval for the various medals recommended by both Captain Ayez Demer N and Captain Barak Goldstein I on to the High Command. She noted that they had already recommended Gregory George for the same spate of medals she had considered after reading. Then she toyed with the idea of promoting him to first lieutenant, but then decided that the generals didn't need any more toe-stepping from the naval officers. She did send a few of them PMs along the lines of, shouldn't we promote the idiot another rank so he can't just bust himself down? Then she pressed the intercom button on her desk and told her secretary, get me a model of Among the Star Tides We Sing in a bottle to give to a good Captain Yormdrill as a gift, and some coffee that he can drink and not die. Then, once the shrink is done breaking the news to Lieutenant George, please inform him that I'd like to speak with him as soon as his duties permit. Aye, ma'am, he replied. Meanwhile, aboard the We Sing, currently docked in the Speaking Softly, Captain Yormdrill flexed the muscle that wasn't there and tried to ignore the pain from an arm that also wasn't there, and concentrated on using the soldering iron that popped out of the middle finger of his newly cybernetic lower right arm. Well, newly relative to how long the biological one had been there. He's had a week and a half to get used to it, which has had all sorts of benefits in his workshop. But since he's been docked, the ship's systems have been in need of precious little maintenance. He would have accompanied his adopted son to visit the therapist for moral support, but the humans had such awfully tight corridors and terribly heavy gravity that he mainly found ways to occupy himself aboard his own ship, where he didn't have to wear a grav belt to move normally. He'd learned a lot about Greg's people that hadn't come through in the stories very well. For instance, They were incredibly friendly, and Greg is considered unusually introverted. Captain Yongdrol wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not, but the visitors have all been entertaining and accommodating. Or perhaps they were hosts. He was docked in their ship, after all. "Hart," came his wife's voice from behind. "What's on your mind?" "I'm sorry that after these short months our son will be required to embark. Our time with him, though rich, has been too short in my mind." "I can see the conflict in his face as well. We're the star for him, yet the Navy is another. I pray that he can chart his course by both stars, and not be made to choose between them, selfishly, though. I hope he'll choose us over the Navy if it comes to it." Trevdi looked at her husband as he hunched over a robot he was modifying to help the children practice for dart wars, and a look of deep worry came across her face. "Hart, I do not believe it's selfish to desire such a thing. I also hope that we are a better and more wholesome place than amongst the service which demands he risk his life." "It is well," he replied, as some tension left his spine. "It shall be well. If he embarks, it does not mean that he is lost to us, merely far. All parents must prepare for such a thing. Yet we believed that we had years and years and years to sing together. It is well, my husband. It shall be well, my wife." Meanwhile, in the living quarters, a teenage girl tried to avoid thinking about the same possibilities her parents so frankly discussed by focusing on modeling new models of sneaky plushies, new outfits, plus a much wider variety of skin and hair colors that she could have ever imagined. The original face was probably going to be the most popular because of how many viral memes it had produced, but the other varieties of humans were adorable, even if so few of them could properly braid their hair and instead kept it short. She thought that just as weird as the humans thought insisting on having long hair was. Her little brother was making that difficult, though. He was hugging his Sneaky tightly with all four arms and whining, "Tran, when's Sneaky coming home?" "I don't know, Yoif." "It's been forever." "It's been a few hours." "I'm bored. I want to ride on his shoulders." "Sneaky has to talk to his doctor." "When is he going to be done talking?" "I don't know." "What if the doctor takes him away?" "Shut up," she snapped back at him, and when she saw tears welling up in his eyes, she made her voice softer. I'm sorry, Yoifa. I didn't mean it. I don't know. I don't want to think about it." Meanwhile, in an office barely worth the word, General Chest pulled himself together. He dried his cheeks, took a mint, put on a freshly pressed uniform, and tried to pretend his eyes weren't bloodshot. Really, he should have gone to his quarters to do that, but he couldn't be bothered to subject himself to the pitying or scornful eyes of those who never had to make a terrible choice as fate had foisted upon him any more than necessary. Dr. Johann had insisted, though, that he speak with his boy, the one he had failed the worst, and after reading the journals, he decided that he was being cowardly to refuse. He took a deep breath and prepared to ignore the painful gazes of his fellow servicemen. Meanwhile, in an office on loan from a petty officer, Dr. Johann stacked the original first contact materials on his loaned desk and composed his face to look serious. "Please come in, Greg." Private First Class Gregory George, the report, Sneaky, Master-at-Arms Gregory of House Drildy of the Among the Star Tides We Sing, stepped through the door smartly, resisted the urge to salute someone who is in a different context would be a major, and took a seat. "Dr. Johann, sorry for being gone." Dr. Johann refused to allow a smile to crack his countenance as he said, "Shut up, internal therapist voice." Greg suddenly turned a shade of pink and mumbled, "Correct advice can be inconvenient." Still stone-faced, Dr. Johann said, "Uh-huh. And Blue General Grievous's? Seriously?" "I like Star Wars, all right. They're even dubbed in Kent." Valiantly, Dr. Johann kept mirth from his face and voice as he asked, "And the, breast nicknames?" "Just look at them." Even the strongest wills can break, and Dr. Johann couldn't keep from smirking as he put Lieutenant epaulets onto the desk and slid them towards the suddenly aghast Lieutenant Gregory George. "Approved this morning. Welcome to O-Scale." "Bastards, all of you. Rat-fink-fecking bastards." "Calm down, son. From what you wrote, you're fine with changing your MOS now." "No. I'm considering retiring from service. It would be a career change. To stay with your adopted family? Well, yes. The man mumbled a little abashedly. Then he lit up. I can't join the O scale. There isn't a commission available. About that, the ambassador has been exchanging emails with the counterparts with the Believer Seas, and they want to make the Wee Sing into a diplomatic vessel and have it tour human space. We'd give you a platoon of shiprats for security, and the nerds are already fighting over who gets to design the overall. I could live with that. Good, because they're threatening to promote you to first lieutenant. Greg blanched at that and wheezed, Please! Then there's the thing about the branding. That faggot poked his own eyes out. I watched your helmet cam video. Oh, we're talking about a slaver here? Well, yeah. So there's no reason for you to get defensive. Okay, look. This thing about me being an avenging angel is fucking annoying. I branded him because if he can't regrow his tail, it's a permanent mark of cowardice to him. And there's a chance he doesn't die. Your captain graciously allowed us to access to the ship's database, and it looks like the crimes he's guilty of rate death to them, too. The future is never certain. Fair. When's the trial and who's doing it? Next week. And we're doing it jointly. Do I need to give testimony? No. We have plenty of evidence without that. Thanks. The administrative review cleared you of negligence since there was a known child in danger, and you alone had the knowledge on how to properly rescue her. I thought that was the case, but you knew that already. Your therapeutic journal wouldn't be a matter of official record if you had kept a log. No, shut up. I was more concerned with not going fucking bonkers than preserving a first contact record. Dr. Johann let out a good-natured chuckle, and Greg's false scowl faltered as the older man said, Son, I don't blame you, but the regs say it counts as the official log from our side. The kids' diaries were a nice addition. Lucy probably didn't think us men would have written down the important things, and Linus just wanted to be included. And you finally told your story to someone. Again, Greg flushed slightly and mumbled, Everyone already knows about Ignitia and the Lost Boys. I'd be repeating what you already heard. Did you read those books I sent over? Well, yes, and? Amelia tells it mostly like it happened. Like, as good as it's getting for someone who wasn't there. I feel kind of bad for yelling at her now. The book full of anecdotes of those little brothers I was on Overwatch for was weird. They got all hero worshipy. The one by Juan Carlos de Antigua III was completely shit. Feck that guy. The one by the Roman dude was pretty funny, though. Those guys are still fecking nuts. Does it bother you that these are the narratives that people believe? A little? And to tell your story yourself, I could do it again. I'm going to talk to Amelia later. Good. Good. She's good people, you know. Served with her in the medical corps. All in all, I think I'm doing pretty okay, Doc. Dr. Johann tapped the sanity journal and nodded, and then said, One more bit of news. The Wendy is on her way here. But the regs? Do you think that any of them gives a feck about the regs after admin has been jerking you all around and you disappear and then reappear at a Xeno station? No. The Lost Boys don't need to hijack the Wendy. Not even now. No, sir. Speaking of family reunions, General Chest agreed to meet with you. He's aboard? He ought to be outside. If there's nothing else that you want to talk about, you're free to. Greg had already leapt to his feet and had flung open the door to reveal the aging general wearing a duty uniform with black patches where the epaulets and ribbon block should be, standing at attention with a look of firm determination on his face. He wasted no time in launching himself into a fierce embrace of his father figure. I'm so sorry, sir. I'm sorry. We should have listened. We were too young. I'm sorry, sir. Dr. Johann closed the office door to give the men some privacy as determination gave way to shock, which gave way to grief on the disgraced officer's face. Nay, lad, I'm sorry. I should have taught you better. I should have been better. Sir, we put you between duties that pulled you apart, and you paid the price for our impatience. I'm sorry. Please, sir. Please, I've needed to, you to know for so long. I'm sorry. General Chest pushed out the embrace and wiped the tears away from the face of the boy he failed to protect well enough, and swallowed the apology to say instead, Let it pass, lad, let it pass. I forgive that. I forgave that the moment Pete did it. I understood, so I couldn't hold it against you. And look how much each of you did. I'm so proud of all of you. You most of all, Gregory. since you found a family of civvies for yourself. Life after service, lad. You can have one. I'm so proud. Very shortly afterwards, in the enlisted mess of the Wendy, the debate over who is the best Xenos was just starting to get lively again, meaning that bruises and minor contusions were being meted out against the debaters when the captain announced that their ship's intercom. "We're there, lads. Let's hope we don't get arrested or court-martialed for this." Colonel Pete, the deadpanned Buford, closed out his compad's hollow display and strode to the bridge. His brothers had a lot of steam to blow off, and they rarely got the chance to act like normal infantrymen, as their legends loom large over them nearly everywhere they go. His first little brother, Greggy, had disappeared from right under the Navy's nose, and he sometimes felt his control over his wrathful impulses slipping. He knew he'd break if he didn't get to hug him, and his other little brothers felt the same way. But he was his big brother, so it was his job to make it happen and pay the price for doing it. That's something he'd learned from the old general. He said a quick prayer for the old man and forgiveness for what he had done to him in his youth and ignorance, and joined the captain as she hailed the speaking softly. She answered, and the Fleet Admiral Angela, the Hammer Churchill herself, glared at him. "What the feck are you doing here, dirt pounder?" "Attending my ship's captain, as you requested docking permission, ma'am." "And what if I tell you to feck sand until your dicks fall off?" "Then we board, ma'am. We're not letting you keep our youngest brother from us, not after what he's been through." "You'll lose." "Aye, ma'am. But so will you." "You're a fecking prick, Pete. You know that." "Aye, ma'am." "Granted. Follow instructions. All personnel are confined to the Wendy unless otherwise instructed. You, Colonel, are to report to my ready room fecking immediately." "Aye, ma'am." The hail was cut, and the captain let out a howled breath and said, "Feck! I thought we were dead when you threatened to board the fecking speaking softly." "Granny just wanted to give us a little scolding first. Don't worry, I'm getting the real scolding." One docking procedure and trip through the supercarrier later, and Pete was stoically receiving phrases like, "The feck do you think you are?" and "Because admin is full of fecking morons dicking you around doesn't mean," or "Do you have any fecking idea what kind of shit show that you could have caused?" and more than one, "Fecking boarding the speaking softly? Are you insane?" Once she'd finally sufficiently dressed down the obstinate commander, the Admiral wound down enough to ask, "Just what the feck did you want to accomplish?" "Ma'am, I wanted to keep my brothers from committing a mutiny and going rogue because we feel the Navy is deliberately preventing our family from reconnecting. Additionally, I wanted to give my little brother a hug." "So you fecking hijacked a destroyer? The Lost Boys do not need to hijack the Wendy." "No fecking course they helped you. For feck's sakes, Pete." "Ma'am, with all due respect, admin's insistence that the Navy treat us like we're a bunch of victims who need to be protected from each other's volatility is fecking stupid." "I fecking know that. What the feck do you want me to do about it?" "You're the fecking hammer. Some fecking thing. Please, help us." The battle-hardened woman flinched, not at the shouting, but at the crack in Pete's voice when he asked for help. "Okay, no promises, but maybe I can get someone to listen." Her comrade chimed, and she glanced down and exclaimed, "Oh, Gregory's getting another solo laurel. You guys can finally be present at the presentation." "Thank you, ma'am." On High Admiral Zolfkron's stately vessel. After a long 2 weeks in hyperspace, High Admiral Zolfkron watched as the swirling steams of hyperspace gave way as his formations re-entered real space. He gawked. The behemoth before him was better described as a station with engines than as a ship. Supercarrier really did mean super, apparently. He was more than a little surprised how being so tiny as the humans could make him feel so minuscule besides their works, and wondered if they'd ever feel dread of their own creations. "Hail them," he instructed in an even voice while the diplomats behind him tried not to quail. Moments later, the smiling face of a grey-haired female filled the view screen. "Hi, Admiral Zolfkron. I am glad to see that you've made it safely. We already have a docking bay prepared for you and your escort vessels, so if you could follow the provided instructions, we'll be able to meet in person shortly." "I'd be glad to do so, Fleet Admiral Churchill. Please accept my gratitude for the hospitality of your, enormous vessel," she offered with a wan smile. Status change, one of the bridge crew on the massive ship shouted. Many hyperdrive signatures incoming. CIP pings. Rover-Noma pings. My lord, the communications officer said. We're being hailed. Patch them into the current My lord, they have broken into our communications band. What High Admiral Zovkron didn't think possible suddenly intruded on his screen. An ugly human. He was more spherical than lithe. His black hair was greasy, his black eyes reedy, and his skin had an unpleasant sheen to it, as if it were damp. Even his gaudy coat was offensive to the eyes, with its clashing colors and dozens of medals festooning the entirety of its copious breast. The entire bridge crew of the Let True Friends Be Found and Made recoiled in disgust at his phlegmy voice intruded. Fear not the fine Xenos, for we true representatives of humanity have arrived to liberate you from the all-conquering Republic and the terror of the foul assassin they have sent to sow fear and doubt amongst you. Oh, for Christ's sake, Jon, what the profanity do you think you're doing? Making first contact with the first non-hostile species humanity has found, of course. By accusing us of sending an assassin to terrorize them, you can't hide that the report is one you sent. I know that he was being trained on Sanctuary just before he conveniently disappeared. I sent an agent to confirm it, and you murdered him. Thank you for confirming that Entropy Razor was your agent. He still refuses to talk. Which means you are responsible for Beastmaster Selva's kidnapping Gregory George of the House Drildy, High Admiral Zovkron stated coldly. Directly after that, dozens of messages flooded in that the various other ships are not affiliated with the speaker, and yet another human broke into the communications band. So you caused such a dishonorable fate to befall the Emperor. The newest human had a gaunt face covered in wrinkles and white thinning hair that it would have been endearing marks of age had it not been for the crazed light behind his grey eyes. Prepare to feel the wrath of Rome. Suddenly the shouting humans were kicked from the band and Admiral Churchill said with obvious exasperation, You might want to get inside before they start shooting at each other. This sounds well. Some hours later, in a ballroom that looked suspiciously like a former cargo bay, Yomdrol tried not to think about the space battle raging just beyond the battle screens of the speaking softly, and due to his frustrations at his former robes, was having some success at that. Helpfully, there was a palpable smugness rolling off of his much smaller adopted son, despite the complete blankness on his face and rigidity of posture. Once again, Greg was able to escape formal robes due to the requirement that such a function be attended in dress blues. Real ones. Not the close enough ones that he had asked to be made while stranded far from his people. There was a suggestion of twinkling when he moved, suggesting stars in the fabric, and the golden brass buttons had the device of his service embossed in them. Additionally, his left breast was laden with mind-boggling array of little ribbons and medals, far more than anyone else present. Captain Yomdrol was pleased that he included the Nova amongst his honors, and in pride of place behind what Greg had explained was the highest possible honor for valor awarded by the Republic, the Solar L'Oreal, which he had 3. He had suspected that Greg had downplayed how valorous he is considered amongst his people. In all honesty, he likely would have done the same had their positions been reversed. But he still felt a small measure of pride that such a man found his ship a good home. Yet he was standing beside his adopted son in a place of honor, with his entire family and crew preparing to receive something which Greg had told him is considered one of the deepest signs of respect possible. The audience stood at ease in parade rest as the master of ceremonies signaled the beginning of the first ceremony. The Lost Boys marched in. They were resplendent in their dress blues, and the crew of the Among the Star Tides We Sing noted that these men had the honors and accolades to match the ones borne by their sneaky. Yet not even their medals made a sound as they moved in perfect silent synchronized precision. It was a strangely beautiful, mechanically fluid dance of marching, turning, and spins, all without a sound except for the obviously deliberate slaps of wooden rifle stocks against gloved palms. Watching it, the crew somehow could feel rage, grief, determination, and finally gratitude and respect pouring out of every motion. Then 2 men handed away their rifles and unfurled a banner between them. It was 2 stars on a black field, a yellow one in the center, and a red one with slivers of green and blue at one edge to the windward side. There were raindrops falling at Captain Yomdrill's feet as one by one the lost boys shouldered their rifles, marched up to him, snapped off a salute, waited for him to return it, and returned to the formation until only their leader and the banner holders remained. The leader handed his rifle off and put his hands out as if to receive something, and the remaining men folded the banner into a triangle such that the burning star was once ignition could be seen, and he took it from them. The banner bearers came up to salute Captain Yomdrill and returned to the formation. Then, and only then, did Colonel Pete, the deadpanned Buford, march up to Captain Yomdrill of the House Drildy and present him the company colors. The captain valiantly struggled to return the man's salute as he clutched the cloth to his chest. All in perfect silence. Even the children were under the spell, and even the youngest of them displayed the purposely serious expression only children are capable of. There were further honors and accolades to distribute to various persons, but the crew of the Wee Sing, nothing could compare to that banner. End of chapter. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Dragzoon W.R.E, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Sevaren Serberous. Thank you very much.